Yeah, you're listening to the Plug and Play show on Radio Plus with me and Kentley. Say hi.
Hi.
And we're joined with Stephen Brown from the Musicians Union. That's your hello. Say hello. So thanks for having you. And guess we should get this interview kicked off. So can you give me just an overview of what the Musicians Union is, please?
The Musicians Union, otherwise known as the MU, is an independent trade union that's dedicated to looking after the interests and rights of working musicians in the UK.
And what sort of services does the MU provide?
Okay, the kind of services that we provide are probably unique amongst the union movement, because I don't know, how much folks will know about trade unions and what they do, but most people who join a trade union have probably got an employer that they work for, whereas if you're a working gigging musician, a writer, a teacher or whatever, the chances are that you're going to be self-employed, and only a certain amount of your work, a very small amount of your work, will be with an employer that is an employer in the traditional sense. So the kind of services that we have to offer to our members under those circumstances are that every MU member has public liability insurance, so when they're out gigging and working, they know that they're covered for public liability. MU members automatically get £2,000 worth of equipment insurance, which they have to register for when they join, so they know that their equipment's covered. We offer a contract advisory service, so for argument's sake, if you're offered a contract for a record deal, a publishing deal, or somebody wants you to write some music or something like this, then you can get that contract looked over by our lawyers to make sure that you're not going to be getting yourself into something that you can't get yourself out, or gets you into loads of bother later on, or is not a good deal for you. Legal services, so if you do a gig, and you find out that the person who's booked you doesn't want to pay you, which is an increasing problem and a constant problem for musicians, you can use our legal services, to take legal action if necessary, basically to make them pay up. Other services that we offer members, because generally when somebody starts out in the music business, the thing that they end up doing might not be the thing that they thought they would do when they started out on their career. They tend to branch out into different things. So we offer various events and training courses and continuing professional development events that they can come along to, which enhances their employability really as a musician. And we're expanding them all the time. So
what are the future plans for the MU?
Future plans for the MU? That's a difficult one. It's a bit like how long's a piece of string. I'm responsible for my patch, which is the East and West Midlands, and I think in common with a lot of organisations these days that are dedicated to looking after the interests of their members, there's a problem with young people connecting, with trade unions, and the MU is no different to that really. Most musicians they will hit their peak, if you like, kind of 22 to 25 in terms of their the level that they're playing at, and then developing their career. So it's kind of only at that point in time, when you're getting towards 30, that you probably think, I've got a career now as a musician, maybe I should join the MU. And one of the things I'm keen to do in my region is get out to as many colleges and universities that offer music courses, if they're technology courses, or if they're courses, say like the Birmingham Conservatoire runs, which is teaching you to be better on your instrument, and get out to students really and talk to as many students as we possibly can about the services that we offer, and the various directions and the kind of trials and tribulations that they can encounter in their career as a musician. I use the word musician, but of course it covers a whole load of different things, because musicians can be performers, they can be writers, they can be producers, they can be DJs, they can be teachers. It doesn't stop just at the traditional idea that somebody is a musician. It's a wide thing, being a musician.
I remember when I was in uni, we had someone from the MU come out, and we were doing all the basically different music courses were all in the same hall. So I was doing creative industries, which was basically music management, so managing bands and artists. and like the rep came out, and it just like we hadn't even thought of it before like joining the MU, and it just seemed like such a good idea. It made sense, and like they showed us how to do contracts, and like some of the services they gave were just really helpful, and I think everyone that was on our course all signed up for it. So
well, that's good. That's great to know.
It's a good rep.
Yeah. I'll go out and see if I can encourage everybody to join. I think that I think you're right in what you're saying. It's not the first thing that's at the front of your mind when you start on a music related course. It's probably the last thing on your mind. Like, the first thing is getting through the course, getting the qualification, getting out there, getting the experience, networking, making the contacts, and trying to build up some work for yourself, really. And the vast majority of young people, I would suggest, probably don't know what a trade union is, and even less so understand what it is that the MU is all about. And I think your experience, somebody coming out from the MU to speak to you about the services we offer, is a positive one, and the kind of experience that we hope that anybody who's on a music related course, if somebody comes out from the MU, and it will usually be myself or my colleague Lindsay, there's only two of us that go out and do that to cover the East and West Midlands, can offer you that information, and hopefully if you join, be supportive for you throughout your career, whichever direction it heads off in, really.
Okay, so how much does it cost to be a member of the MU?
If you're a student in full-time education, it costs you the princely sum of £20 a year to join the MU. You need to provide, a letter from your educational establishment, college, university or whatever, to show that you are a student. But it's £20, which is a fantastic bargain, really, because you get exactly the same services as a full member would get. So when you're out there working and gigging, the cost of membership goes up to £195, but there's no discrimination. You're treated equally. For your £20, you'll get exactly the same services as a member that pays the full rate who's working.
So just stay in uni to get a cheaper rate there.
Stay student, yeah. I did actually have a mate years and years ago who went through about 5 different courses. I think he spent the best part of 15 or 20 years at your university. The oldest student in town.
That leads on to, what advice would you give to musicians and managers? Would it just be join the MU? Or?
Well, I suppose it would be as rudimentary as join the MU. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing to remember about the MU is it's an organisation dedicated to musicians. So if you find yourself starting out as a musician, DJ, writer, producer, whatever, and then it kind of morphs into something else where you're organising gigs, or you're managing bands, or you're responsible for a venue or something like that, there are other homes that are organisations that represent you, kind of doing those different jobs. So providing you carry on being a musician, the MU is for you. If you branch out into theatre or live music or something like that, organising and doing that, there are other unions. You've got Bectu, for argument's sake, which does all the technical stuff for people working in theatres and venues and studios. But there is a trade union there that's dedicated to looking after your interests. Obviously, my interest is the MU, really. So yeah, join if you're a musician.
So how was it founded, like the Musicians Union?
It's actually last year it was 125th anniversary. It was formed by some musicians in Manchester who'd kind of had enough of the kind of deal they were getting, and they could see musicians being exploited. And rather oddly enough, the kind of mantra that they decided and used to set up the MU is probably as good today as it was then, because they had a few things that they wanted to achieve. Firstly was obviously improving the terms and conditions for musicians, representing musicians, protecting the interests of musicians, protecting musicians from amateurs that come in and undercut them, and lower standards. But I guess more importantly, and one that we always, I wouldn't say we joke about in the MU, but some of the stories we get coming across to us about musicians who find themselves in trouble, protecting musicians from themselves, really, because I think even though we live in a digital age, and a lot of folks download music now, the basic concept of becoming a musician, getting in a band, or become a professional musician, session musician, whatever it is, playing in an orchestra, the basic principle and concept is still the same. You want to go out, you want to ply your trade, but there are unscrupulous people out there who will rip you off. Now, if you're in a band, they might give you a crap record deal. They might want you to go and do gigs for free. If you're working for an employer, they might not necessarily want to pay you what the going rate is for the job, because there are going rates for the job in the music industry. The MU has got agreements with BBC, ITV, the theatres in the West End, the theatres across the country, with orchestras, with the music industry when it comes to session players performing on albums and all the rest of it. So, we try and set a standard for what you'll get paid and the terms and conditions you can expect when you're a working musician.
Okay, so now it's probably time to plug the MU website. So if they want more information, where can they find it?
It's quite simple. I guess everybody's familiar with, I'm not giving a plug for Google here or anything like that. If you go into any of the search engines and just type in Musicians Union, you'll find us, because it is literally, the website is www.musiciansunion.org.
Yeah.
So, it's as simple as that, really.
So why should people join the MU?
If they want advice throughout their career, if they want help with contracts they might get offered, difficulty with venues or organisations that aren't paying them, if they want to develop themselves as a musician, and we run masterclasses, we run continuing professional development courses, we do health and safety stuff. Clearly, for a musician, your ears are quite important, so we do hearing clinics, all those kind of things that will help you as a working musician get you through your career and make it a more positive and rewarding experience, really.
So what's the best thing about working for the MU, in your personal opinion?
Doing something you love. I've been a musician since I was a teenager. I started out playing in, and I suppose I'm not untypical of musicians generally, but the vast majority of my colleagues who work for the MU have been gigging, working musicians, writers, composers, or whatever. So to actually find a job that is something that you've done previously, but with a slightly different angle, where you can help your fellow musicians avoid the kind of pitfalls, that I, for one, and probably some of my colleagues experienced when we were younger, I think is a fantastic thing, really.
Yeah. It's always good to be able to help people, which is one of the points of this show, is to provide information and tell them about the services that people provide to help aspiring musicians.
Yeah, it's probably an old cliche, but knowledge is power. If you go into something and you're not aware of what it is you're getting into, there's a good chance that it might not necessarily have the best outcome. But our job is to make sure that, we pass on our knowledge to musicians so they have the information to be able to make informed choices about, do they sign that deal? Do they take that gig? Do they take that session? They're being offered, a gig to compose something or something like that, a piece of music. Are the terms and is the deal right for me? And we can help them make informed choices, really.
So is there anything you think we haven't touched on that you want to mention?
Well, I guess, it's tough out there for everybody, isn't it, really, in terms of earning a living, and, musicians are no exception, really. And in terms of music education, I think it's quite challenging, because the Arts Council, for argument's sake, that funds music services in this country, music services have lost 30% of their income, and that's quite a challenge. And our message as a trade union is that music education is really, really important, because it picks up so many things, and you don't have to be academically gifted or into sports or anything like that to appreciate and enjoy and play music, and it can open so many other doors. So my message would be that music education is really, really important, and those services should be supported, really. Coventry, so music services, performing arts services, facing the same difficulties, and we try and do our best to assist our members to make sure they can be the best they can, and they get a fair deal for whoever it is they're working in, whatever school, really.
I think that's going to pretty much wrap up the show. Thank you for joining us, and if you want to plug your website again, you can.
Yeah, just go onto a search engine, Google, ask, whatever. Just type in Musicians Union, www.musiciansunion.org.uk, and you'll find us.
Okay, so that was Stephen Brown from Musicians Union, or MU, and you're listening to Plug and Play on Radio Plus. Hope you enjoyed it and found this informative.